This is Tim.
This is Ryan.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo talking for the first time on this show with Ryan Cecil Smith in California somewhere. How are you?
Hey, Tim. Yeah, this isn't our first time talking, though.
But the first time on Critiquing Comics. You've
that's
been
right.
on Deconstructing Comics before.
Yes, excuse me. That's
But,
right.
yeah, I mean, they're in the same feed, but there is a bit of a distinction there.
Yes, and I have a dog who will sometimes bark. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It happens all the time when I record with my brother for To the Bat Poles. So. Yeah, so we haven't seen or heard from you here in Japan in a while, and it seemed like all the comic shows in Tokyo ended even before the pandemic. So,
Is that right?
I mean, Cat kind of went on hiatus, and Kaigai, I'm not quite sure what happened. They had one that was like in Kyushu or something rather than Tokyo, and then the pandemic came.
Well, I have family in Japan because my wife is from Osaka. So the last time I went to Kaigai, which I guess we saw each other then.
Probably.
And the last time we did that, honestly, it was so much work doing like a family vacation, which I love to do, and also doing a comics convention, which I love to do, but it was exhausting. So I think we didn't go to the one after that because it was just like, no, don't do it. Don't just pick one. Don't pull work into family trip. It was a bad idea. So I love visiting, and I hope to see you next time I'm in Tokyo, but we're always going down to Osaka to see family. Well, this is personal time with Tim and Ryan. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so have you put out any comics lately?
I feel like I haven't. No, I let's see. In the pandemic time, I haven't. I guess I just am taking a pandemic pass. I'm using my pandemic hall pass. No, I mean, let's see. I'll tell you what I do, Tim, though, is I used to make so many mini comics, and I still print stuff at Retro Jam, the print shop in Japan, in Osaka. But the most of the stuff I print is like postcards, like New Year's cards and stuff, and a little bit of packaging for stuff. Most of the comics that I do now, I write and draw comics about clothing for a menswear website called putthison.com.
What's it called?
It's called putthison.com, okay. And it's I'm just gonna excuse me for plugging in this industry. The comics I do, it's a website about kind of men's clothing and kind of how to dress better. That I really loved this website when I was like 22 and 23. It had like really practical advice and was good. And then so like years later, I met the founder of the website, who I really liked. He has like, his name's Jesse Thorne. He has some podcasts too, and he asked me to do strips for him. So I do comics about like clothing, and they're kind of diary comics sometimes, and they're sometimes they're kind of instructional, and I draw a lot of comics about just kind of what it's like to be an adult man who likes clothes and buys clothes and cares about that stuff. It's kind of fun. So that's the most. I do strips every 2 weeks, and I've been pretty steady with that output. I really enjoy doing it, but I don't have. Maybe I should print them. I like printing comics too, but I love working on some sci-fi comics on the side. Oh man, and then sci-fi comics, but I haven't printed anything. So I love comics, Tim.
Yeah, well, that's why we're here. Right. So I recruited Ryan here to talk about the Texas Tracts from Rachelle Meyer. Now, Mulele and I talked about one of these way back in January, but now she's put out the other two because this is a 3-part thing. So the Texas Tracts, she's modeled them on the Chick Tracts by Jack Chick, which are evangelical Christian comics. And I was looking at a few of them on the web earlier today, and I mean, the chick tracts, I mean, whatever you might think about the message, they're really good as comics. So she's, I don't know how much you've looked at chick tracts, but
I mean, kinda, yeah. I guess they are pretty effective, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good storyteller. So she's modeled her comics on those. When they're printed, and she sent me the first one, the Holy Diver. It's in my closet somewhere. But it's just a little pamphlet type thing, just like the chick tracts are, and even the cover design is the same.
Yep.
But hers are. So she's writing about when she was growing up in Texas and brought up Catholic. And in all three of these, she's kind of poking at what she was taught back then. And it's not like flipping off the Catholic Church exactly, but she's sort of questioning it or shrugging off some of the things that she was taught back then as being, I mean, not useful to her anymore. Maybe you could put it that way. I don't know. It's not full-throatedly rejecting it, but just kind of like, well, but then on the other hand, kind of feeling.
Yes.
Right. So the first one, Holy Diver, that Mulele and I discussed in January, was about the idea of backmasking, the backward satanic messages that were supposedly hidden in rock music to subliminally recruit teenagers to the dark side. And I've weighed in on that already, but what did you think of that?
About the first one, I mean, it's they're. I mean, well, I just want to say they're really good comics. The stories are like told like with a really nice like steady flow. Mm-hmm. They're told like oh my gosh, my dog is barking. Excuse me.
Let's get the dog's opinion too.
So they're told with like a steady flow. It's it's told through like kind of narration more than the characters like speaking. It's like her narrating over these like pictures. It's kind of like, which I think gives it like an easygoing way to tell the story. You could almost do the story without the pictures. Actually, come to think of it. But I think it's good, and I remember that in it they, as you said, she's not out here to like she's not making a really heavy point. She's not even going so far as to say this is ridiculous.
No.
She I think it's like her brother like brings it up to her.
Well, she's worried that he might, fall prey to Satan. So she's looking around in his room to see if there are any signs of Satan, and she finds this the Dio album Holy Diver, which has a satanic figure on the cover. And so now she's really worried about him, that the devil is going to get him, and she doesn't like steal the record or break it or anything, but she leaves a note on it. Dear Ron, I fear this album may be the work of the devil. Love, Rachelle.
Yes, and she basically leaves him a note that says like, it's so sweet. It's such a sweet little sister thing to do. Mm-hmm. I would be so baffled if my little sister did this to me. And he's basically like, thanks. Okay, thank you. Like, no comment, and like, let's go swim in the pool, or let's go hang out. Okay, and it's like basically like, I did my part. My brother was nice to me, and that's it. And
and she says she felt a little sheepish by the time he approached her.
Yeah, well, I think if you were like a super religious person or not, you'd feel kind of sheepish calling out your brother for something like that. I feel sheepish when I call out a coworker for something rude. Mm-hmm. Call out culture 2020s. If you tell someone what you think they're doing maybe isn't that cool, it can sometimes be appropriate, sometimes not. and whatever it is, one feels one feels kind of sheepish, to use that word. And I think that this comic is basically just like expressing that feeling, and like that's it. It's just being like, and that's a feeling that people feel, which kind of like gives humanity to these to me, these kind of like weird Christian evangelists, which I was raised as one of these weird Christian evangelists.
Okay.
And you know, she basically, I feel like in her strip that she does another, she kind of imply. I feel like the format of these strips kind of implies that she today maybe is kind of critical of these things. She doesn't really state that opinion in this mini comic. She just expresses the humanity, the feeling of what that's like, and that's what this is about, and that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so the second one is called Joyride, and it's about, now I'd never heard of this, but there's a kind of talisman called a scapular that people were supposed to wear around their necks at all times, and it on one side of it says, "Whosoever dies closed in this scapular shall not suffer eternal fire." So it's kind of a get out of hell free card. And she talks about how this nun told a story of a high school boy who was like really popular in school and smart and athletic, and then he got into smoking and drinking and kissing girls, and had a car accident, died, and his scapular was found hanging from a tree, somehow flung off his body, and so as if like he was now not protected and he was going to go to hell. And young Rachelle is really haunted by this story the rest of the day. But then she says, the first part of the story is talking about getting a driver's license and how that's such a rite of passage in Texas and, in most of the states where there's not much public transportation. Right. But then at the end, you see young Rachelle. She's like putting her scapulars away in a box, and she says, "The charms of my youth wouldn't save me. Maybe it was time to put childish things away." Yep. And that's how it ends.
Yeah, it was like it starts talking about this like rite of passage is to get a driver's license, and it kind of ends, I feel like, maybe not, it's not a rite, but it is a passage of her getting older. She kind of learns like she wants to get a driver's license, but another part of her journey here is like deciding that these little charms that her religious teachers tell her about are like not worth bothering about, which is, that's like her growth. She talks about how the growth she's kind of expecting is like get a driver's license, but the kind of surprising growth is she's like, I'm not going to bother with these little religious trinkets, which is kind of interesting. Because the point of the story was kind of messed up. Like, it was like the nun telling her the story about like, yeah, you got to wear these little trinkets or they have these little trinkets, like you wear it around your neck so that you won't, like you said, it's like if you're wearing this when you die, you won't go to hell, which is like amazing.
Yeah.
Like, sounds very like Canterbury Tales. But like in the story, it's like this boy was wearing it when he was driving, and then it just got flung off his neck, and he went to hell anyway. It just kind of feels like, what is the point of this story?
Yeah,
like,
I wasn't really sure. Yeah, so what does that mean? Well, her interpretation here is the boy's mom tried, but God's the one who sorts us all out in the end. Which, so was the nun saying the scapulars don't work?
I think the nun was. I think the nun, who's like a teacher and a conservative teacher, and seems like being kind of a hard teacher, she's not telling the kids like, hey kids, these little badges don't work. She's saying like, yeah, like you think you can use these badges to get away with doing bad things, but maybe God will throw them off your neck when you sin.
Because you've been smoking and drinking and kissing girls. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so I think the point the thing that she grew through this experience of hearing this story and getting older is like kind of seeing that the story that the church was telling is being kind of twisted. Its internal logic is twisted, so for its own ends, So it's like, yeah, you have these little charms, and they work to keep you from hell. But even if they did work, if you're being bad, God will twist it off your neck, right?
Well, so then what's the use of it?
Well, I think that's kind of, and I think that's what she's kind of like realizing it without saying it is like, wow, these little things, like, why am I even thinking about this? And I like how it's subtle, she's, that's a nice thing about it is she's not like driving hard at the Catholic Church here, but you are seeing a real story of learning.
And the last one is called Rainbow Collie, and this was the one that actually made me kind of angry, and not really at the Catholic Church, but at this nun who doesn't seem to have any appreciation for kids' imaginations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, basically she was it shows like a coloring sheet rather than a coloring book, but it's a picture of a collie, and she decides she wants to make it extra special and use all the colors for this collie and not just color it kind of drab brown. But when she gets it back, she finds that the nun has written "dogs are brown" messy on it and drawn an X over the dog. But Rachelle seems undeterred, and she's like, if this nun was really close to God, wouldn't she see what was in my heart? Why I intentionally colored this collie rainbow colors rather than realistic ones.
Yeah, you're right. She didn't say it that way, but you're right. That's what she's saying. Yeah. It's another case where in all of these she doesn't like come out and say like the Catholic Church is bad or something, but she's very kind of low key without words expressing something she learns. And you said it, it's like just as you said it. It's like if she's so smart or close to God, like you'd think that she would it's just so weird that she totally misinterprets it in such like a kind of negative way, and and she basically just seems to learn at the end like, oh, I'm sorry, she does say it. I'm looking at her here. How could she not know if she were? Excuse me. How could she not know if she were closer to God? How could she not see what was in my heart? And and then it's like, and the last line is, she basically just like goes home. I think it's trying to say she like puts it on her fridge. I'm not totally sure, but she basically just like comes home and says, "I've never stopped putting rainbows where they don't belong."
Well, it looks like let's see. So she gets home and she pulls it out of her bag, and then she apparently for the first time sees what the nun wrote on it. And it looks like she puts it back in her bag.
Oh, yeah.
And then she gets a drink out of the refrigerator, and she goes outside and plays with her dog, who is white, not rainbow.
That's so funny. I didn't even notice that. That's an interesting point.
But she says, "I've never stopped putting rainbows where they don't belong. Have you?" And as she's playing with the dog, there is a rainbow in the background.
And it's like the only color panel of the whole series. She's colored this one, although it's not especially rainbowy. She does color the flowers, which look to be lantanas, my favorite flower, by the way.
Right, but then in the background there's an actual rainbow.
And there is a rainbow. Yeah. Yeah.
More on Texas Tracts in a moment. What did we think of the art? What is Rachelle's point in telling these stories? And more after this.
Greetings from Wayne Manor Memoirs, a podcast dedicated to exploring the Batman mythos.
Each episode, we research a character, story, contributor, or piece of pop culture related or adjacent to the Dark Knight,
and try to understand why these topics are important to the Bat mythos. I'm Joe.
I'm Kendall, and some of our favorite topics include the transformation of Mr. Zero into Mr. Freeze,
The early appearances of the Riddler,
Booster Gold,
Commandi,
Jim Aparo,
and many, many more. Check out Wayne Manor Memoirs every other Friday, wherever you download your podcasts.
and follow us at Wayne Manor Memoirs on Facebook or at W Memoirs on Twitter.
Until next time, Bat Fanatics, be brave.
And stay bold.
I wanted to talk about the art too, because I pulled out a couple examples from this one in particular. On page 9, I mean, that picture of the kitchen is so detailed, and not just the kitchen itself, but all the backyard that you can see out of the patio windows. You know, the fence back there, and
Yep.
it's really, I mean, it's kind of cartoony, and yet it's really realistic and detailed. It kind of straddles that line.
It's a good background. Yeah, it straddles that line.
And I also like how sometimes the illustrations are, you know, there's some humor there. Like earlier on when she's thinking about how she believed how the clergy in the Catholic Church had such a close connection to God. And you see this priest who's sitting in a chair talking to Jesus, who is lying on his stomach on a cloud with his legs up in the air.
It looks like how youth pastors hang out with each other in a 12-year-old's brain. Like they're so cool and chill, and yeah, it's like they're at a slumber party. That's her image of pastor talking to priest talking to God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, by the way, this is critiquing comics, but sorry, Tim. I just want to say I kind of would like to offer criticism in this regard. I'm kind of sensitive about it, like she sent this stuff into you, right? So
yeah.
Am I talking smack on someone who didn't ask for this, or is it okay for me to give
that's the whole purpose of critiquing comics, is people send us their work and we talk about what was good about it, or what could be improved, or
Cool. I knew you said she sent it to you. Okay, great. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Because I would like to, I would like to offer some criticism, or some kind of how I read it, what's working and isn't, and what could work better. But
okay.
Here. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah,
well,
by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you bring up the backgrounds, and oh my goodness, and the humor and the art style. I just want to say, first, I think these comics are really good. They definitely they have this nice flow. I think they're well written, and the imagery, the images communicate what she intends pretty well. Although actually, I think this ending bit with the rainbow is an example where it's a little confusing what she's going for with the kind of metaphor. But a lot of it is quite literal. Especially in Joyride, it's a lot of kind of literal, what's going on in front of you. I think the first one was too pretty literal, and so there isn't a lot to misinterpret. And actually, the kind of what is the meaning? Too, this gets straight to what I was feeling about is what exactly is the meaning of these stories? Is something you kind of come off reading. To be honest, I'll just say that with this one, you kind of read the third one, and by the way, to the artist, I just have to keep saying, I think you're really good. So I'm talking casually here, but I support you, and so forgive me for speaking loosely around you. But I when I read this last story, it really made me feel that she should say more about herself in these things. She really is not saying what she thinks, and in the first one, it was kind of just an experience, a human experience of what it feels like to call someone out on something, and it's just very gentle to show someone doing that. But it doesn't give a lot of comments, And in the second one about the little badge, you see her learning and putting something away, but I'm kind of implying what I feel she's learning from this, which I think I can feel pretty clearly, but she's not saying it.
Yeah, there's a lot left to interpretation in all of them.
It's not an outright rejection of Catholicism or the teachings of her teacher or her teacher personally. It's just and I didn't really vibe that way. The end. And you're kind of searching for, and this last one is the one that comes the kind of the closest to saying a little more about her. Like for example, I personally, I was raised religious as a Southern Baptist, and I'm not religious at all now. And so I really, I don't know where she's at with her journey. It doesn't have to matter. I'm not, it doesn't matter. But I want to know, actually, reading this, it really makes me want to say, like, wait, so okay, are you trying to say you're like LGBTQ? Are you lesbian or anything? Just because all the rainbow stuff. I'm like, so is that? By the way, it does not have to be about that. But I'm just wondering, and what I'm saying is, if that is meaningful to her, if that's part of her journey, that's just, by the way, that because this rainbow is like a common symbolism for like gays and lesbians and being queer and stuff. That's the reason I say that.
Yeah, I don't think she is, though. I mean, she actually was on critiquing somebody else's comic a few weeks ago, but.
Oh, see, because she's got a good head. I bet she could critique people's comics.
And I met her son actually on Skype.
Oh, cool. Well, the thing, it doesn't matter, by the way. But I'm just saying, if that were so, I would want to like see that. I want to know where she's at. The thing is, actually, reading these comics and kind of empathizing with her, kind of gently and like feeling this, it really does make me want to know what's going on in her brain. So if that were part of the thing, I'd want to know. I want to hear that. And if that's not it, that's cool. But it really makes me want her to say a little more what she's feeling. What conclusions is she coming to? I really want to know more about her. These comics are so short and they are good and gentle, but it just really gives me a strong feeling of like, what is she saying? She is doing a great job of doing it subtly, and I'm just complimenting her by saying like, I want more, but yeah, like I want to know, like and you bring up the background art. So to bring specifically to like the formal aspects of this, it is interesting how she has this like only the last panel is like colored, and that feels meaningful in some way, right? It's like, so suddenly this like, it's the only color. I've never stopped putting rainbows where they don't belong. So that means, I'm sure that doesn't mean that she's always coloring and rainbowing things. I'm sure that's not what that means. It's metaphor, but I'm not exactly sure what she means by that.
Well, I guess my interpretation was, kind of vague, but that maybe she's talking about not holding back her creativity.
Oh yeah, okay, that's good. You said that's good. I mean, I kind of get that vibe, but I'm just saying I want to know a little more. I wish she'd give me a little more. And again, about the background. So there's a very colorful panel here, but then, as you said, just a few panels up on page 9, she actually has like really well illustrated like background, like this environment where she's like comes home to her kitchen and like her dog's in the backyard, and you can see a little bit of the backyard. And I guess like in terms of a critique, I would say like there's so much like going on in that background. Like when she gets home, like it's really well drawn and stuff, and there's like shades and marks to it. And there's actually like more going on in that than the panel that seems to be intended to be emotionally impactful, which is the very last panel. But instead, the drawing is a bit more boring. It does have color, but it doesn't have the same level of like, the kind of way she's like really gone into the way the table's built and all the details on the fridge and like the fruits and there's a lot going on there. And I think having something that's that worked up, a few pages earlier, it kind of dilutes this like meaningful ending. Now, I'm not saying that the answer is like plug in, plug out, but it could be, or just I think there should be a little more understanding of like what that's doing emotionally and in terms of the headspace of the characters, is like you have this kind of emotional ending. Again, it is well drawn and there's color in it, but and I guess I'm saying like I'm kind of matching my feeling of like I want to know more what's going on in her head. I do, and that's a compliment, but also that like I don't think that the formal aspects of how she's drawing it I think they're a little bit detracting from the power of her narrative, where she has this like kind of impactful metaphor at the end, but it's a little bit like I don't know what she's trying to get at exactly, and like the the formal aspects of the comic aren't really helping that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in a way, actually, it's like you do have this like oomph going on in the interior, and then when you like get to the exterior, the last panel, it's like kind of like the details kind of drop down. It feels kind of emotionally lower. Now, what I kind of suspect is maybe that last panel is just not as fun to draw. She didn't have as much fun. She didn't have as much fun drawing it, you know. And I can kind of feel that a little bit, and we all have that. And sometimes, to me, the answer to that is sometimes maybe to rethink then how you're gonna draw this or something. Like maybe I would have if this were in like a rough stage, sort of like maybe try to recompose this in a way that makes it more exciting for you. Like maybe have a big view of the sky, a bigger view of the sky that's interesting or grand or something, instead of just like a...
Yeah, well, as I'm looking at this last page, which it's kind of a spread across 2 pages,
Yes. So
but
very wide.
I kind of see where it's lacking. So for one thing, I mean, the rainbow is such a relatively small part of the picture.
Yes.
But also, so we got her whole backyard, and you see her and her dog twice there. And I don't think she's been cloned. It's like, you know, the time has moved on.
Yeah,
but,
and it's kind of 2 pages. Like, to be honest, I'm reading it as a PDF here, but it would be 2 pieces of paper folded.
Right. So the fold would kind of be a panel border.
Yeah, it works that way, I think.
But I mean, I think it would have more impact if we were closer up to her. We're looking at her like we're inside the house, looking through the patio window, and she's so kind of far away, and it takes away from the impact.
Well, I think in a way, you're right. It's very, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's very simple, kind of boring staging, like left to right, which can be very effective at moving the story along, but you know, in this like kind of emotional, impactful ending, it's just like doing nothing. Mm-hmm. So it's you know, that's what I was saying. Like maybe like pan up, which is hard to pan up in a very horizontal format. But yeah, you're right. Exactly as you say, it's as if we're looking from the kitchen window, kind of just an odd choice. Although, you know, I can see it. I can see it working. It just isn't enhancing or clarifying what she's saying very well.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I'm now imagining, and now I'm rewriting her comic for her, but so like imagine a view from like the surface of the yard, looking a little bit more up at her and the dog, and you could get more rainbow into the background then, and she would be closer to us.
Or raise the horizon up a little bit so that you can see into the backyard, you know, into maybe like beyond the backyard. And in other words, like taking the story like into her future life. You know, we can see what's beyond you know, if you raise it up so you can see like what's the vista, what's the town, that town that she's going to go to live into, you know, go beyond later. It's still just like very confined. And again, we're rewriting for, you know, we're you know, she's not here to be with that, but that something like that, yeah, some kind of emotional. It's not just emotional; it actually does have an impact on the meaning, the way you frame it, you know.
But also, I'm wondering so the line, "I've never stopped putting rainbows where they don't belong." If there were some way to show that.
I totally agree.
You know, if like maybe putting the picture of the rainbow collie somewhere that it maybe doesn't belong, that would have been a good image to back up the narration.
Or you know, this is kind of diluting the meaning a little bit. I feel it's like this image. It's actually like very like local color. You know, like cactus is green, fence is yellow. Like you could have painted this fence as rainbow, you know, that we as the reader know is surely not a rainbow fence. She could have, this white dog, this literally is a white dog. Maybe in the actual printed book, she rainbow colored every dog. That would be cool. You know, for example, like those kind of choices. Like, yeah, like making that rainbow thing be more going on, you know? Could have done something for this, you know.
Or what if we see off to the left that statue of St. Francis of Assisi that's in the backyard. Stick the rainbow collie picture on that.
Yeah,
and she's putting a rainbow where it doesn't belong.
I just wanted to paint everything in rainbows. I'm just repeating my cliche, but paint that guy colored in rainbows or something. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we're feeling, this like kind of, something else could be happening here,
Mm-hmm.
And it's again, it's not because I think like I like this kind of understated, not going hard. It's almost cliche to go after the Catholic Church with the same energy that Jack Chick goes after. Well, I think he goes after the Catholic Church too. But
Yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah.
we're not trying to go after hard. That's a cool subversion to use this medium, which we associate with like propagandistic nastiness. And she's not doing that. She's like sharing these human stories. But so we're not trying to get her to go that far. But I think it does feel like I want to see more of her and where she's at. I want to know more. And I think I appreciate the stance that's like, I think it's a cool stance as an artist to be like, I do not feel pressured to write a thesis statement on religion in this mini comic. Yeah, I totally 100% respect that, but I believe in her that she could say something a little more directly, strongly, colorfully, and it would be her truth. And I think that would be not only really good for the reader, but I bet that would be really satisfying for her as a person to be saying something a little stronger. But I have enjoyed this far, but I want to read something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hopefully she'll do more comics beyond this, and maybe she can work on maybe expressing her feelings a little more directly.
Let's see when is your graphic novel coming out? No, I'm kidding because comics. I'm over here reading this like this 3-part story that this person made, and I'm over here like being like, tell us more. But that's a compliment, that it's cool. It's not just like a criticism, but it is saying like I really feel like you gotta tell more. That's what I gotta see here.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of knocked loose something that I was sort of subconsciously feeling like, I just wanted a little bit more somehow.
Yeah,
it was all good. I didn't really consciously look at something saying, I don't like that. But I just wanted a little bit more clarity on what her message was.
Yes. It's good. It's a good read. And again, we're she is in the club with us. We are critiquing her as as one of us. We're not. So that's what we want to see more. It's good. It's good, but there's I want to see. Maybe no. I don't want to ask her to shoot venom. I was maybe she should just spit some venom, but I don't want that. That doesn't seem like what she wants to do. But it's really good. I don't know where else to go with this. I could critique the page 2 of Rainbow Collie. The third book. I think she could extend that sidewalk out to the left a little bit. It's a little, hit the horizon a little more clear. I could say stuff like that. That's silly. That's not important. I think the drawing really communicates what she's after, and it's good drawing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've pretty much covered it. I'll certainly link to her site in the show notes. And do you have a site I can link to?
Oh, you're so sweet to ask. You know what? I just tell people to go to my Instagram, which is at Ryan Cecil, RyanCecil. So if you want to see what kind of work I do and what I'm about, you can see my Instagram, and that links to my like real website and the comics that I publish on another site. That's a good place to go. Check out my Instagram.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, if anyone else wants to send us a comic to critique that you have made yourself, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read it and talk about it on the show. So
yeah, and I really enjoyed this, Tim. I'd love to do this again with you.
Okay, great.
this was fun, and I hope that I'm always so nervous to give criticism, but I feel like this is a pretty safe house, and that it's cool. So I'm over here acting like I'm smart, but maybe I should have you guys critique some of my stuff next time I publish something.
Okay, that'd be good. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening, and thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Find out more about Rachelle Meyer's work at RachelleMeyer.com. It's linked from the show notes along with Ryan's Instagram page. Support our show at patreon.com/deconcomics. Next week, Deconstructing Comics returns. After reading several books by and about Stan Lee, Emmett and I switch gears to see Jack Kirby's perspective via Tom Scioli's comics bio, Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. How did Kirby see his battles with Stan? What do we think of Scioli's technique of speaking from the point of view of real people? We'll discuss it all next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.